Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Roy Kennedy.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
I'm Chris Yee.
And for some reason, it always seems, let's say everything, I look at Red Rising, and for some reason it seems every time Stonemaier Games comes out with a new game, it's an event.
Yes.
Right? This is definitely one a lot of people talked about.
Correct.
Now this is based on a book series called Red Rising, and I had never really even heard of it. I think someone might have meant, no, I did hear of it because I owned the book and I just didn't realize it. But I went and read the original trilogy in preparation for this because I don't know, I just felt like that. And I think you've read them.
I did as well, yeah.
And you guys have not, right?
I have
not
no
read
clue what the theme is at all.
Well, that's
There's
good though.
colors.
I mean, hopefully that lets us come in with different perspectives.
Sure.
I read it before I played the game. I think you read it after?
No, I just finished it like 2 days before we got the game.
Got it. All right. Well, anyway, the designer of the game, or there's two designers of the game. One of them, Jamie Stonemaier, said that that's his favorite book series. He was very excited, and he's been wanting to make a game about it for a while. Played a game called Fantasy Realms. This is definitely out there.
Sure.
And wanted to use those mechanisms to make this game. It's a little bit more than that, though. Let me show you. In Red Rising, whoever has the most points at the end of the game is the winner. There are 4 main ways to get points: by collecting helium, which is worth 3 points each; by moving down the fleet track, depending on how far you move down, you can get up to 43 points that way; and by having cubes in the Institute at the end of the game. Whoever has the most cubes gets 4 points per cube. Second place gets 2 points per cube, and everyone else gets 1 point per cube. And then finally, collecting cards. You're going to have a handful of cards at the end of the game, and you're going to score points for each of those cards. Cards have a point value in the top corner that they're always going to score you, and then extra points down below. For example, she gets 15 points if you also have Darrow in your hand, and she's worth minus 15 points if you have Mickey in your hand. The Firewall Explorer gets 20 points if there's at least one location with no cards or where the top card is face down. So you're going to start with different cards and locations. Players are going to start with a handful of 5 cards. Their cards are made up of 14 different colors. There are more golds in the game than anything else. The rest, there are 6 cards of pink, green, yellow, brown, blue, orange, gray, violet, obsidian, silver, white, copper, and the hero's red. Now, in this game, every card is different. So this red card, for example, is different than Harmony, different than Uncle Narrow. So players are going to start with a handful of 5 cards. One person goes first, and we keep going till the end of the game is triggered. The end of the game is triggered when the fleet is at 7. Someone has 7 of these, or there's 7 cubes in here from all the players, or if one person has accomplished 2 of those. On a player's turn, they're going to take one of 2 actions. They're either going to lead or they're going to scout. Most of the time, you're going to pick a lead action. When you do that, you take one of the cards in your hand, you play it at any location you want. There are 4 locations to play it. And then there's a deploy action on the card, and you can take that action if it works. So for example, it says you may gain a gold from this location if you do end your turn. So I could play it here, and I could gain the gold Aja, and that ends my turn. Or maybe I could play Aja. It says choose an opponent, they banish one of their cards, then banish Aja. When you banish a card, you're simply placing that card next to the board in a pile of banished cards because those can come back later. Or here it says move a pink or violet to any location directly underneath this card. You may gain that card. If you do, end your turn. If you're farther in the fleet track than the player to your right, give them this card, gain the top 2 cards of the deck, and end your turn. Gain another obsidian from this location. Choose an opponent. They may give you 2 helium to take another turn. If you have the sovereign token, that's this token right here, reveal the top card of the deck in place, not deployed on another location. So you're going to be doing that action first. Then you're going to pick up a card from a different location. So if I played the card here to the Institute, I could pick up the top card from Harmony and add that card to my hand. If you do so, you take the action of the location you've gone to. So if I take the card from Jupiter, I move my fleet up 1. If I take it from Mars, I get a helium. If I take it from Luna, I get the sovereign token. And if I take it from the Institute, I add a cube to the Institute. Whenever you take the sovereign token, that's going to trigger your special ability. At the beginning of the game, you're going to pick one of these houses. So this one, for example, It says whenever you gain a sovereign token, reveal and replace the top card of the deck at any location. Whenever you gain a sovereign token, advance once on the fleet track. When you get the sovereign token, gain a helium. Things like that. You can also, instead of taking a card from the top pile here, you can simply take the top card of the deck and add that one to your hand. Like I might get Mustang here. When you do that, your bonus is going to be on a die. You'll roll the die, which has you might banish a card, gain helium, etc. There's various things that you'll get from rolling this die. You're going to keep doing this, leading or scouting. If you want to scout, you simply draw the top card from the deck and put it on a location and then get the bonus of that location. Normally, you'll do that when you're pretty happy with your hand of 5 cards that you think, oh, these cards are going to work together at the end of the game. I don't want to give up any of those. And then you count up the score. Once the game end is triggered, whoever has the most points is the winner. There's a lot of different cards in this game. Now, in the books themselves, they barely talk about characters that aren't gold. So most of the gold characters are generic, like priestess, psychologist, justice, musician. There's a few other colors that are named, and every major character in the book is going to be in this deck somewhere. There's the main character, Darrow. And so the art on all the cards is pretty cool looking. The cards themselves are very good quality. What I've been showing you here is the basic game. And the box comes like this, with cubes, and there's a scoring pad, etc. The deluxe version, which we're going to talk about as a group in just a second, comes like this with an insert. Now, this is me opening the box. The insert was barely moved, but you can see that the cubes do not stay in this insert. They move around, but the cubes here are metal. There are 5 color cubes here, just like in the game, but you'll notice that the metal colors are a little tricky to tell apart, especially the green and blue. There's a green and blue, and there's also gold and copper cubes, which are not too easy to tell apart also. There's also these bins, and I have a hard time. The cards keep falling down into the smaller well inside them. There's also a full set of components in both sets, whether you get deluxe or regular, that are used to play a solo version of the game. Okay, so theme-wise, let me talk to you guys who haven't played it.
Yeah.
Did it make any sense? Did
I
anything
have
come
played the
through?
game.
I mean, I'm sorry,
but
you
the
played
theme.
it.
I haven't
Sorry.
read the book.
You haven't read the book, sorry.
What do you think of the game, Roy? You haven't played.
No, I meant the theme. You guys you haven't read the books.
No, I
So
haven't.
I don't
did
think
you
this
see
is a
the
game that I would call a thematic game, or like a game that's very strong, like thematically. I mean, to me, it was just characters with names that I didn't know what the characters were at all, but there were some little combos that might have worked together, and maybe if I knew the theme, it'd be like, oh, cool, this character worked with this character. That's why there's extra points for these cards. But it's all extremely like mechanical how everything works. It's mostly like, if you have this card and this card, you get extra points. If you have this card, you can't have this card in your hand, or you get minus points. I'm guessing there's a thematic reason behind that, but I have no clue what that is because I haven't read the books or the story or anything like that.
Yeah, and I felt like this was a type of game that didn't need to have a strong thematic connection necessarily. You explained briefly before we played that this was about kind of different hierarchies in society. Right. I think if you tell people that going in, that's really all they need to know. And then if you want to make those little thematic connections, you can. You clearly are not going to be able to understand why this particular named character wouldn't want to be with that particular named character unless you read the books. But I get it. I'm like, oh, okay, these two characters must have some antagonistic relationship.
But that being said, I do enjoy like the spacey theme and the artwork of all this stuff. I mean, I just enjoy
I think we all agree the artwork is good.
The artwork is very
Super good.
I think I enjoy space themes in general. So just being the fact like, oh, it's different hierarchies of people and they're doing different stuff and trading things around and having to get ships here and there. I enjoyed all of that sort of stuff in the game. Even though it's not a very thematic game, it's extremely mechanical, I still enjoyed kind of how the stuff interacted together.
I really liked the books a lot, and I was going into this thinking, how are they going to represent it? And then I realized, oh, by pulling the lens way back. You know, I was expecting maybe something different, but then we said, oh, this is inspired a lot by fantasy realms, and so, okay, cards match or don't match, and then some cards want certain colors of cards in hand, and others don't. And so it's fine.
Every
appreciate
combo
the nods.
made. Maybe there's a few names I didn't remember, but I would see this works with this, and I go, that made sense.
Yeah.
So thematically, yeah, don't come in as looking for, especially if you read book 1. If you're coming in here looking for book 1, which is a very Hunger Games style book, that's not this at all. I do have one problem with the theme, but I'm going to get to that in a bit. Actually, I guess I'll just say it now, and then we'll go into that. I felt that the game has these 14 different suits. There's 20 golds, I think. It's 21 golds, or something like that.
7 of every
and
other.
7 of every other color. And they did that. They have these 14 colors because there's 14 colors in the universe. And I think 2 things. One, the books actually show a bit of problem here in that the books almost exclusively talk about gold and red. Actually, the books almost exclusively talk about gold, a little bit of red, and then tiny smidges of the other colors. In fact, some colors, I don't know if there's a named character in the book for them, I think. So, and this kind of brings that out because they do that. But I think this game might have benefited from having fewer colors. I feel like sometimes you need a pink card, and there's no pink cards coming out. And especially if you play with fewer players, you're not going through the deck that much.
Right. That did happen.
Right.
I did find a couple of times where there was a specific color. I'm like, certainly I'll see one of these, and I don't. You know, that can happen.
So let's talk about the game itself. Now, it's played by Fantasy Realms. I don't think you've played that.
Yeah, I haven't played Fantasy Realms at all, so I've only played Red Rising.
Right. So actually, when we first heard about this, I was like, oh, we got the new copy of Fantasy Realms. So I taught these guys Fantasy Realms, and I loved that game. What did you all think about Fantasy Realms?
It's quick and punchy.
Yeah.
And just agonizing because it's draw a card, put down a card. You can only have this many cards in your hand, and you want to score as much as you can from those cards.
Right.
It's so fast and
You
easy.
you explained the game to us in about 2 minutes. I thought, hey, I know what this game is going to be like. And at the end of it, I was like, this is so much better than I thought it was going to be. I really enjoy Fantasy Realms.
Well, since we played it, we can all agree this was definitely the inspiration for this game.
Clearly.
Yes.
And stated, like you said, by the designer.
Sure, and he, like I said, he opened that door, so we're going to compare them a bit.
Sure.
Because now one is a tiny box of cards, and this one is a big, grandiose game. Oh, yes. We didn't talk about that. Let's do a brief detour here. Should you buy the enhanced version or the basic version?
Basic version.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah.
Basic,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't want to spend the next 10 minutes complaining
Right.
about the collector's edition. Just don't buy it. There's so many.
There are issues.
Yeah.
There are issues with the colors of the cubes.
Yeah.
They really are.
It's a bad insert.
yeah,
you can
it-
see the word gold through the cards.
Right. It's not overstated. Those cubes are clearly badly colored. It's a usability problem.
For people in good lighting,
And it
for
doesn't
people
matter.
who usually do not have issue.
Yeah, we play here in the studio with these
the
lights on
studio
us.
lights. The card holders are too thin at the base. That's just the truth.
The air conditioner kept knocking them
Kept
over.
knocking them over.
The insert's awful.
Yeah. So this is one where if you are, on a budget or just trying to, think about such things, you're better off with the regular version.
Well, even more than that, I have both copies, and I'm putting the normal version in the Dice Tower library.
Right.
Normally, I would never do such a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But anyway, let's talk about the gameplay itself. Well, what did you think of it, Mike?
Well, I enjoyed it. Now, the question that came up, and you said we are going to compare to Fantasy Realms, because I think you're right. We have to.
Yeah.
My question was, is what this added a benefit? Did it make it for a better experience than that simple card play in Fantasy Realms? And I think the answer is probably not. I do prefer Fantasy Realms to this. I think that it's interesting in the way that you can kind of manipulate those other actions you get, because you play to a column and there's an action that corresponds to that column that you play in. I do think there's some cleverness there, and sometimes I appreciated it. Other times I felt like I was doing something just because I had to do something, and it just didn't give me that satisfaction that I felt every time with Fantasy Realms. So I enjoyed the game, but I don't know if what it adds is better than just the simple card game that it was based upon, or at least inspired by.
I think that it adds some options for when you play a card down. Play it to a location,
Sure.
and maybe has a location-specific bonus, or it's basically 4 discard piles.
Right.
So I appreciate that kind of manipulation with it. And I think what happens is that some games of this are much more fun than other games.
Yeah.
Some games you have a really cool hand of cards. I can play this here and get this little bonus thing, and then I'll pick up a card from somewhere else that I know will kind of daisy chain.
Right.
And then other games you just have a hand of cards that doesn't work together. It doesn't matter where you play them, and you say, why are there even 4 different locations? I think that's going to be a factor. If the first time you play this you say, oh, these cards are just terrible, I think it suits you to play it a few more times and see, like, oh, this is where the highs of it go, because you've probably experienced some of the lows, maybe.
What about you?
I haven't played Fantasy Realms at all, but I thought this was interesting. I don't know how to compare the two because, of course, I haven't played it. But I thought it was interesting. Like, there's 3 different ways to end the game, and you're trying to race to that, and you're trying to figure out how to get all the stuff. I do find it interesting that, like, once you have that combo in your hand, once you're kind of like, I got the right cards, it makes it kind of like this weird, strange gridlock of like, do I put this card down? This is a good piece of my combo. I'm going to put it down. Maybe somebody won't pick it back up. It could put you in this like tough space of like, I really need the ability for it now, but I kind of need to try to get that card back because it's going to work together with the rest of my cards. Sometimes you can get like locked into a hand that you really like, but you're not 100% sure if the points in that hand are better than the points in someone else's hand because that stuff's all hidden. And the cards that allow you to get more cards into your hand, like you start with 5, right?
Yes.
And you can go up to 7. If you get more than that, then you start losing points.
Yeah, I didn't mention that in the overview, right? But if you have more than 7 cards, you lose 10 points per extra card. It doesn't matter because they're always worth more than 10.
Right, you can get more than that. But if you're not able to get the opportunity to add more cards to your hand, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage for points. You have to figure out ways to get more cards into your hand to be able to figure that stuff out. And of course, you're trying to race up the 3 different end conditions because you have to have 2 of those to actually trigger the end. When we played, I ran really quick up the one, I forgot what the thing was called, like the influence or whatever. Got a ton of that. And then I was like, okay, cool. I've got this on lock. I'm getting a ton of points from this. Now I got to figure out another way to trigger towards the end of the game to actually make this work. And then me and Chris were racing back and forth trying to make that sort of thing happen. But it adds that interesting angst of like, which card do I play? And I love that they're all multi-use cards, which makes it a lot of fun for that as well. It's like, do I play it down for the ability? Do I save it in my hand for points? It's got points at the top. There's all sorts of different, interesting choices with that stuff. So it's kind of an interesting game when all that stuff is combined, but it's very mechanical with all of that stuff.
Red Rising has much better artwork than Fantasy Realms.
Yes.
It's not even close.
Not even close.
This is where, as a fan of the book, I think was probably one of the best parts was...
I didn't even know what those characters look like.
There's almost no art out there that's not on an Etsy shop.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it was really, really fun. The first thing I did was I just looked through every character.
Oh, nice.
Oh, there's Victra. Oh, there's Mustang. You know what I mean? As a fan of the book,
That's
I
true.
was
She
like,
did not look like I had imagined. I
But
just
it was
expected
great.
someone else. So yeah, so I love that artwork. But so many other problems. So Roy mentioned one thing I have a huge problem with. He mentioned getting extra cards is a big deal. I think
It's
so.
a really big deal.
Even worse, though, is me losing a card from my hand because
Yes.
of a take that style card in this
Right.
game. I really dislike that.
Right.
It can actually ruin your game.
Yes.
So it's a somewhat short game. Well, that leads me to my next thing. The game's longer than it should be. It's longer than it needs to be. It adds extra stuff. Great. There's a track to move up, area control, and getting red
The crystals, 3 points.
fish things. So it has all that stuff, and that's neat. But multiple times now I played a game where my hand was done.
Right.
Yeah.
Pretty early.
And then
And it's hard to figure out how to end the
Right.
game.
And then I'm like, okay, so I'm just going to draw a card off top of the deck and play it. That's really boring. You know where it's even more boring? When you do it in a solitaire game. So, yes, oddly enough, I played this one solo because I was curious about the famed what's the name of this guy in here? Automa?
It's Automa.
Automa.
Yeah,
Automa,
Automa.
No, but he has a special name in this one.
Yeah, it's Tau Automa.
Well, so in the books, all of the gold's last names are Au. Telemon is Au something. So it's Automa. It's
Got
a
it.
pun, Tom.
Got it. Okay, fine.
Big fan.
So I played it, and it's a very well-oiled, slick machine that
Yeah.
made me feel like I was playing against a well-oiled, slick machine. Didn't feel like I was playing against an opponent at all. I was just playing against a bouncing score. But anyway, in that one I finished early, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to draw cards. But now I got to wait till the computer finishes the game. I don't think the game scales particularly well. I feel like I don't like that the game drags out because in Fantasy Realms, if you want to end the game, I can end the game myself in 4 turns.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you want to, but you also have a bigger hand, and it feels, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's also cards that only work with a couple other cards, and you're looking for those. They probably won't come out in a 2-player or a solitaire game where this Automa is eating up half the deck.
Right. Answer me this, if you would, the 2 of you that have played Fantasy Realms. Don't you feel like there's more possibility to pull off big combos in Fantasy Realms than there is here? To me, here, it felt like every card was going to be a variance of between 10 to 15 points.
You mean the bonus?
Yes.
The card can go up to 40, I think, right?
Whereas it felt like in Fantasy Realms, there was like, man, there is almost no way I'm going to pull this off, but if I do, right? And there's something really fun about trying that shoot the moon. I don't feel like there's that in this at all.
Well, you can't, though, because, again, there's 120 or so different
that's what
cards.
I'm getting at. That's what
and
I'm
it's almost too much in this game. Now, I didn't hate the game.
No, not at all.
I thought the game was fine. But again, Stonemaier opened up the comparison to Fantasy Realm, and I would sit there and think, why am I playing this over that one? It's a bigger box. It's a more expensive.
It looks nice.
So you're the fan of the genre, and I'm not a huge fan of Red Rising. It's a very brutal book series, but I enjoyed it a lot. But that wouldn't make me play this anymore if it was called Harry Potter. It really could have been rethemed to anything. I don't think this. If you took this theme away and themed it something else, I don't think you would notice.
No,
for sure.
I think it works for it, but not not particularly well. Oh, the blue fleet track that you move up doesn't feel like any fleets in the books. So the helium-3 points, in the books it's helium-3, and we jokingly called it helium-3 points because that's what they're the 3 points.
Right. And I mean, it could actually behoove the game if it was a different theme, because then they wouldn't have been forced to having so many different suits, minimizing your combos.
That's what I'm saying. I really think they would have cut 2 suits out. That could have been all the difference in the world to get some of the colors. What are your final thoughts, Roy?
I think for me, I enjoy games that allow you to do interesting card play and allowing you to do combos and allowing you to do stuff. I did feel like there was a little bit of gridlock in my hand at a certain point. I was collecting a bunch of gold cards. I had cards that made it so that the negatives on gold cards went away, and I was I really need more helium-3 to end the game. All right, I'm going to put this card down, pull it back up. Overall, I think this is a 6.5 for me. I enjoyed the game. I don't know if it's one that I'm going to go back to, but if someone pulled it out and was like, want to play Red Rising? I would definitely play it some more and figure out some of the stuff. I do think that the game looks good. I like the artwork. I like the production of it overall for this version of the game, not the color issues with the other version. But I thought it was fun, so 6.5 for me.
It might sound like I hate the game, but actually I'm going to give it a 6, with the last 3 or 4 turns being a 5. Because it's so boring, the ending to me. But I have lots of problems with the game, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to look at the cards. I should mention, I have one more problem to mention, and that is this game is so prone to analysis paralysis with a few people, especially if they're sitting on the upside down part of the board and having to turn every card over to read it, look at all the cards in hand, decide which one to play, pick up and I'm like, oh my word, just pick a card up. So there's a little bit of that. But I liked it. I'm like sitting there going, ooh, I've never got these 5 cards before because I haven't. I'll never draw that hand of 5 cards again. And so I'm sitting there like, ooh, these work together. I'm just not sure that those decisions are as meaningful as I think they are as the game goes by.
I am very torn. I'm giving this one a 6.5 myself, because the games that I've had of this that really sing, where I have a fun hand of cards and nobody plays a card that says trash one from hand.
I hate that card.
Playing this game with a 4-card hand is awful, right? The highs are really high, but the lows are so low in it that I can't give this any higher. So 6.5 is...
I feel like you'd just be out of the game at that point.
You're not, because you can still win with the other stuff.
You could. But
and this is one of my complaints, though, is that I feel like ultimately all of the stuff that it added on the board, the fleet track points, the helium-3 points, the Institute cubes points, they average out so that every player gets around 45.
That's
maybe
true.
50.
You all do get the same number of points.
Yeah.
It's the hand of cards that breaks the tie.
If somebody
the
has
hand of
7 cards in their
cards.
hand, somebody has 4 cards in their hand, there's no way the 4-card hand's winning.
I cannot imagine that. So this is a game that I didn't particularly love at 2 players either, which is usually an important criteria for me. I play a lot of games just my wife and I, and so 2-player, it was very static and boring. So we put the solo Automa in there, and I really like the solo mode actually. So I'm so all over the place with my thoughts on it, but I cannot rate it higher than a 6.5 for all of its flaws, despite how fun it can be.
Yeah, and we're going to be pretty close. I'm coming with a 6 as well, and this is one I have to be honest. I think I would rate it higher if I hadn't played Fantasy Realms.
Wow. Okay.
I really do. I think I would have rated this higher if I hadn't played a better version of it.
Because it would otherwise feel so
It would feel
unique.
more novel, right?
That's true.
But Fantasy Realms I'm sorry, it does it better. And that's one example where less is more. I feel like it does some things very well. And again, it's not a game I would turn down playing. I don't think that it's fundamentally broken, but I do feel like I feel like there's not a lot of big moves that you can make. I'm with you. I actually almost prefer, you didn't love the solo, I almost prefer playing this solo because I can just kind of pour over what I'm doing and I don't have to worry about someone taking a card out of me.
I got that. I was just saying at the end, though, when I was done, I was like, okay, I'm taking my card. Now the computer will do all his stuff.
I absolutely agree with you. So yeah, I mean, it's not a bad game, but if I want this experience, I'm going to go somewhere else that I think does it better.
I learned that I should play Fantasy Realms, so let's invite me, guys.
Maybe you were not in that. I don't remember what happened.
I was editing your reviews, Tom.
Alrighty, well that's Red Rising, and you may love it too. So definitely check it out. Until next time, though, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Roy Kennedy.
I'm Mike Delisio.
I'm Chris Yee.
Have fun rising. No, that's wrong. Reading. No.
No.
That's a railroad.
Break the chains.
Helium 3.